It's helpful to be with doubt. Be specific. What are you doubting? You doubt the business model? You're doubting your financial model? Are you doubting that your investors are going to commit? Are you doubting in your own leadership ability as this thing grows? Are you doubting in your own stamina? So the more we can be specific, then we can decide if we can address it or not.
All right, welcome back to the Live Wonder Podcast. I'm Jason Yarusi. Today we have the pleasure to have Sam Davidson on the show. Hey, Sam, how you doing?
Hey, good, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on the show. And so Sam's got a pretty impressive background and was really good to connect. Sam Davidson's the CEO of Nashville Entrepreneur Center. Prior to that, he was a four-time entrepreneur, believes that the height of one's success is directly related to the depth of their community. 2006, he began by founding Cool People. Cool People Care, a media and merchandise company that leveraged new technology to connect thousands of individuals to causes and nonprofits in local communities. He raised over $125,000 for causes ranging from disaster relief to hunger awareness. Then went on to found three other companies, including Batch, which is a national gift and retail business that connects entrepreneurs with new customers. In 2022, Davidson led the company through an acquisition by a private equity group and has twice been named Most Admired CEO by Nashville Business Journal. Both Davidson's companies appeared in multiple things you've heard of: New York Times, Southern Living, Boston Globe, NPR, among many. And in 2020, Davidson founded smallbusinesspledge.org to raise awareness about the positive impact small businesses have on communities across America, especially so many just closing during COVID. Working in Nashville is the best place to start and grow a business is one of the things that you've really hit home. And, really welcome to the show. I'm just doing so much here. The first question that comes out of the point is that, was there a decision you made early on in your career that was really pivotal in terms of you looking back to where you are today?
Man, I think the only decision I made was being honest and answering the question of is this what I want? And what I mean by that is my first job out of college, I worked in hotel management. So one skill I gained in college, didn't know what I was going to do, but had a hankering, had a desire to do something bigger, knew that I just didn't want to work in hotel management. And I remember the day that I decided to get out of there and what eventually led to start my first company, but going to my director of operations, being like, I'm out. And I had already been promoted within 6 months, already gone to a national leadership program, but identified as somebody who could really grow within the company. I remember him saying, like, dude, you're crazy. Like you're leaving, you're on this trajectory. You could earn a crap ton of money if you stay. And I was just like, yeah, but what if I get hit by a bus? Or what if I end up always wondering, like, if I had left and done my own thing? Because if it doesn't work, it sounds like I can always come back if I'm this kind of star performer. And so that gave me a little bit of the confidence and a little bit of the cushion to say, let me go try something else. Extremely grateful for that time at the hotel, for all that I learned, for what they taught me that I didn't learn in college and other places in that practical real world environment. But to me, that was the decision to say, like, while I'm here, I've got to jump out and then go try this thing and see what happens.
The impetus to start is on so many people's minds, right? They have all these great ideas, and I'm sure you get brought to great ideas, but then they waver, right? Because they don't have the confidence in yourself. And you said that you picked up that confidence from them, basically just giving you support there. But what other aspects of someone that they should look at when they have an idea that they really need to jump? What else stands out?
So I think a couple of things are critical. Here at the Entrepreneur Center, which I know we'll talk about our work soon, but we're helping hundreds of founders a year start or grow a business. One of the key things that people ask me, if somebody's going to succeed, it's a killer idea, of course. Raising capital, sure. Are you coachable? Are you resilient? And those two things, if you're not willing to be coachable, not because everybody has better advice or the best advice, but just willing to sit with an idea that's in disagreement with yours and where you think you're going in order to improve what you're working on. And then resilience. How many times can you get told no? How many times can you have your back against the door, the chip stacked against you, between a rock and a hard place? Pick your metaphor. But how many times can you face that and say, you know what, I'm going to keep going? Not to your detriment, of course, not to the sacrifice of your health or your family, but just to do that, because that's often the difference is somebody who was not willing to take good advice or somebody who decided to quit instead of try one more time. That's usually when the breakthrough happens. So it's those two critical attributes that really allow people to set themselves apart when it comes to doing your own thing and to being an entrepreneur.
As someone who sits on the sideline saying, yes, I want to be coachable, but I'm trying to just truly, I guess, make sure I'm taking in the right information, right? Because many times you get the information from people and it's hard because people want to tell you things that potentially might not be good for you.
So some of it is who is the advice coming from? If it is coming from an anonymous online troll, who cares? And I can't remember the exact quote, but I remember somebody talking about, you should judge the weight of the feedback based on the weight of the relationship. And so if it's somebody that the relationship doesn't weigh anything because you don't even know this person, their advice is probably meaningless too. But if it's somebody that's really close to you, like a true mentor, someone that you have followed, that you admire their business trajectory, somebody who loves you, somebody who cares about your personal well-being, that advice should mean a lot more. Part of what we do here at the Entrepreneur Center in Nashville is we try to connect every entrepreneur with a mentor. So according to SCORE, businesses that have a mentor, 80% experience revenue growth in their first 90 days of getting that mentor. So the number one way to grow your business, it's not science, it's just a mentor. If you're willing to do that, then you're willing to grow. And then as you build that relationship and it grows deeper, then that advice is going to mean more. That's just how it works. And so we encourage people to have that relationship because like the backside of that is your mom, your dad, they should love what you do. They're going to think it's the greatest business idea ever. They're going to buy your barbecue sauce or whatever you're doing. So you got to be careful of that. Your mom can't be your only customer and you thrive. But I think when it comes to that coachability is who is the coach is a great first question to ask.
When you pick an idea, and how do you pick from all the ideas you have, right? So cool people care, right? What was the impetus there that you said, you know what, that's the one I'm going to go after?
Man, so the first business, 2006, almost 20 years ago, we started that. And I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship. I studied history in college, nothing. I took one business class, got a C- macroeconomics, and thought, I'll never need this, never do this. But we were working in the nonprofit sector at the time, and we saw a need for a technology that would connect young people who were starting to care about more and more causes to the causes themselves, because the causes were old school. They didn't understand social media that was just taking shape. YouTube also launched in 2006, online video. It's this new thing. They didn't understand it. We wanted to create a platform for them to connect because that's the lifeblood of any thriving nonprofit is the next generation of givers, volunteers, board members, et cetera. And so it was a thing that as soon as we started it, still not really knowing what we were doing, that was the aha moment for me of like, whatever this is what I want to do. Maybe not run this company forever, but this process of taking an idea and making it real, I was like, I'm all in. I'm going to do that. And that's why I've done it. Did it 3 more times. I've moved on from that life because now that I get to run this organization, we'll help 600 people do that this year. But to me, it was what is needed. I found the quote you said at the beginning that I say every time I'm on a mic, on a podcast, on a whatever, the height of my success is directly related to the depth of my community. Cool People Care at the center, it was this community, this connection piece. And so all my ideas have revolved around somehow connecting what's fragmented. I think kind of this is oversimplified, but most business models, they either connect what's fragmented or they fragment what's connected. And so we saw a need to connect the things that were fragmented, and that was a generational play. Other businesses did the same thing in terms of connecting different customers or marketplaces, but I've always thrived on that. And so for me, it didn't end up being the product itself, the technology itself, but it's what it did that got me the most excited every day.
So you talk to coachable and resilience as 2 big aspects of an entrepreneur's success level, right? What are some other parameters that you see really position an entrepreneur to be successful?
Those 2 are big ones. Now, those 2, how do you measure that? Can I give you a score? Can I see your performance on those things? Tough to say, because some entrepreneurs, for better or worse, they may not need to be all that resilient. They may just catch lightning in a bottle, or they may have enough funding. I don't know. If you want to get more into it, I've been talking about this conversation a lot. Sales. Sometimes I can have a bad word. Sometimes entrepreneurs think like, oh, I started this company because I don't want to do sales. Well, guess what, buddy? If you're the founder, you're always selling. And if you don't want to, if that's because you don't think whatever you started is the best solution for somebody, then we may need to re-examine this. Some of that's philosophical, but some of it's practical. When I would start companies before, a salesperson was an early hire, not necessarily always the first hire, because that should be the founders or the founding team. Should be always out there talking up this thing, no matter what it is. And no matter what your goals are, multi-billion-dollar idea or, a community small business, doesn't matter. You're always selling. You're showing up. That's what's on your t-shirt, literally or figuratively. Having that desire to just tell everybody about what you're doing, that's got to be there. If it's not there, I wouldn't invest. I don't know how successful long-term it's going to be, because what you're going to encounter, this goes back to resilience. Are you willing to wake up early or stay up late to do this? Not because you have to all the time, but that's what's going to get you through. That's what makes you resilient. It's like, all right, I'm going to do it again tomorrow. I am.
I wholeheartedly believe that. Times you don't want to do sales, but you're selling all the time, whether you realize it or not, right? You're selling, whether it's trying to get yourself to work out or even to your kids, right?
Right. Yeah.
Anything. All you're doing is selling. And in your business as an entrepreneur, you have to be constantly selling, because you're selling this vision that potentially is not there yet or hasn't been created or path hasn't been on. It's one of the most paramount things that you have to have as any person, right? Regardless of what you think on it. And it gets such a bad light because you hear it, but you're doing it regardless. And so the more you can just double down and put yourself in there, that really separates you out for 100%. So as a salesperson or a person who has ability to sell proactively, right? What are some of the most important things you need to have that can make you a very charismatic, great salesperson?
Yeah, I'll hit on a couple things. Number one, I think you have to believe, and I tend to position when I was running my businesses that I'm meeting a need. And if I don't feel like I can meet your need, then I'm not going to sell to you. I think that's where sales gets this bad rap is like, I have a yoga studio, you're not into yoga, I'm not going to sell to you. We talk about something else. But if I hear that you're looking for a yoga studio closer to your house and I do the math on where mine is, then I'm going to sell you on it because I'm meeting a need. So you got to have that belief. It doesn't matter what you're selling. It can be benevolent. It could be, a miracle cure. It could be a house. It could be anything. But you got to believe that, hey, this person has that need, I'm going to meet it. If you can't, the best thing you can do, number two, is just be helpful. So a lot of times when I ran, for example, my gift company, if I didn't think we were going to win that deal or had the best gift, I would tell somebody. And maybe they wanted something way cheaper than we were willing to go. Maybe they wanted items we didn't sell. I would say, oh, you know who you should call? So-and-so, let me do an intro for you. And then that person, even if they end up working with them, they remembered that. And so they'd come back to us next year and say, hey, I think we have the budget now. Or, hey, I think we might want to go after what you guys have because they just want somebody to be helpful. The last piece is we are animals of story at heart. All of us are biologically, sociologically, we are wired for story. That's what we remember. So anytime you use a salesperson can captivate me in a story, I'm all in. I can see features, benefits, 80% cost savings, 54 efficiency, whatever. Cool. But what I remember are the stories. And when you can connect me on the story, then now I'm in and I got to have that thing. So if you can work in a story as you're selling, that's that third piece there that I think can really help you thrive.
As people come to you at the Nashville Entrepreneur Center, what are some of the first steps that you lead them down to really help them on their journey? I know you talked about mentorship and other pieces, right? But ideally, there's layers before that are going to be needed to be able to bring the right person on board.
Absolutely. So we offer a free consult to anybody. So it doesn't matter what stage you're at. You could just have an idea and you're like, is this something? Or you could be like, look, I've been running this barbecue sauce business for 5 years. Free consult to anybody. And it could be like, what do I need to keep growing it? Or here's where I'm stuck, or here's where my opportunities are. And our team will diagnose that and say, great, we either can help you or we can't. So back to that, can we meet your need or not? And what we may say, being in Nashville, we may say, hey, this other organization can help you through that issue right now. So I'm going to send you there. Again, just like the other analogy, I'll do an intro on your way. They're going to be great. Or if it's something that we can resource, we're like, absolutely, man, get in here. Here's a 12-week accelerator. Here's Joe. He's the best mentor on that topic. Here's a place you can co-work. Here's an online resource. Here's a discount to a vendor who can help you through that. We diagnose that because sometimes an entrepreneur doesn't know what they need, but we've seen it. Like I said, we'll work with probably close to 600 founders this year. I don't want to say we've seen it all, but we probably have. I've been here 2 years, but the organization is 15 years old. We've helped over 15,000 entrepreneurs navigate obstacles and opportunities to date. There's a chance we can help you navigate that because especially if it's the first time you're doing this, you don't know what you need. And so you may come in thinking, I need to raise money, but really what you need is 2 new customers. And those are very different things. And an entrepreneur can say, I'm going to go raise money because they watch a couple episodes of Shark Tank, when really they could spend less time and effort and have more success if they just focused on customer acquisition. So they need somebody to do that. We can do that. Now, when we say, great, go talk to Joe, he's the best in the world at this, then that's up to you guys and hash that out and see if you want to keep talking to Joe. Joe helped you, or you need somebody with a little more specificity in what they can mentor you on. But we think mentorship can help anybody. We think community can help anybody. Currently 275 members in our community who love seeing, hearing, meeting, talking, helping one another, entrepreneur to entrepreneur.
What's your philosophy on when to raise money for your venture?
The easiest time is when you don't need it, when you already have a bunch of customers or you've already raised money. But that's the old age old, like, I want to get the job, but I don't have experience. I got to have experience to get the job. Money's the same way. We love to hate it. So the question is, when do you need to or when is it easier to? I think you can answer those kind of both the same way. It's usually before you think you need it, at least to start having the conversations. Because a lot of times investment, now if we're talking about equity investment, a lot of times what that boils down to is it a fit? Do I like Jason? Do I think Jason has what it takes? His business model, maybe I don't agree with 100% of it, but you know what? It at least has a shot and he's going to figure it out if it doesn't work. So a lot of times very, very early, I'm betting on Jason. I'm betting on the jockey, not the horse. And so sometimes it's, no, this business model, it's leveraging AI to blah, blah, blah. I'm all in. I got to get in that before it's too late. So again, that can depend on it. But I think the earlier you can have those conversations, the better. Typically, what you want to be able to do is tell an investor, if you give me $1, I'm going to turn it into 2, or better yet 10, or even better, 1 million. And so that's what investors trying to figure out. And so typically what doesn't work, a lot of times I think we get founders who say, I'm going to triple my business. In order to do that, I need to raise money because I'm going to go spend the money on marketing. I'm going to go spend the money on advertising. And that never, I hate to say never, but it never works because an investor's like that. That's all you need to do. Like, and there's other ways to do that. That's really what you think you need. That doesn't scale necessarily. It's really, what does that money get you? And why do you need it now? And so typically that has to do with what we call a moat, protects your castle. And the deeper and wider your moat, the better your company is. And so some of that happens with time and size. So you can launch another social media network. There's a couple out there that have huge moats just to get me to use a new one based on all my friends are on this one. That's a moat. And so what is your moat? Is it your technology? Is it a patent? Is it a market size? And so if you can define that, that's what people want to throw money in, is to keep that moat bigger and deeper, because that's what leads to dominance and potentially really big revenues and earnings.
Raising capital, it's always funny because people think that when you need it, you can go out and raise money, but then it puts you under pressure, right? Because now you need the money, right? And so your pitch, everything changes, right? Your whole dynamic changes because you're in need, right? And so one of the best advice I got over a decade ago, because we raised money for real estate projects, and it was that go out and talk to your network. One, because it gets the training wheels off. Two, if you think you're going to be fantastic at raising money and your first conversation you're going to have, the person's going to invest in you, like you're not going to know the questions, right? It's that same part, right? You think you have all the answers until you get this first question that comes out of the person's mouth and say, well, I wasn't prepared for that. And now you're going after your big fish or the people that are maybe heavy hitters. We actually made an avatar, just a one page of what we were looking for, right? And we went out there and just talked to our network for months, right? But it gave us the confidence, the ability to get the question out of the way, and honestly got people interested into the idea of what we were doing. So when we did finally find the Build It You Can Come project, then we went back to that same person, and it was very easy to have the commitments at that time. It sounds quick, like, oh, we raised the money in like a day, but we had spent months preparing that. And so many times I see entrepreneurs or just real estate investors, they think like, oh, when I find this, then the money will come. But it just changes the whole dynamic, right? Because now you're not in the power position. You're not in the position to help someone and help someone understand, right? And I'm sure for investors, like sometimes, many times in the beginning, they were betting on me, right? They're betting on me from what I did before this. But at a certain point, right, they also have to understand what are you doing, right? Like what horse are you riding?
It's still a business at the end of the day. No matter how much they like you, they're still getting a return or have an ownership share, whatever it looks like. And to your point about like talk to everybody as soon as you can, and that goes back to the sales thing. Yes, the money that I ended up raising eventually as we grew was for people I'd never known before, but it was usually through some other conduit, friend of a friend of a friend. So, one of my businesses, we raised a friends round, typically friends and family. None of it was family, but it was friends. And again, the lead couple guys were folks we knew, but then they invited people they knew. And that is typical or a path of less resistance. There's not no resistance to raise some of those first dollars. And those folks, they know you, they're betting on the jockey. They can be a little more patient, work for us with our business model at the time. But if you don't have friends, if you don't have those folks to draw from, you got to make them now. So when to raise money? Yes, I agree with you. Talk about it as soon as possible. To who? Recruit those people now. You don't even have a business idea? Doesn't matter. I always say build your network before you need it, because you never know when you're going to need an attorney, an accountant, an investor. And so the more you can meet those guys, I say yes to nearly every request to meet. I can't meet you for a long time. I can't meet you immediately. But I generally never say no, because now we're in each other's social graph. We may need something from each other, maybe immediately, maybe down the road. And one of us is going to help each other. I just have that belief. Again, especially in this role, can't resource it as quickly as I'd like. Or sometimes if I can diagnose what you need real quick, then you don't need to meet with me anyway. Happy to say hi, but you need to meet somebody on my team or somebody else in the community. And again, we can still have helped each other out that way. But when I think it's like, hey, this could be an interesting conversation, why not have it? We want to connect. Again, back to that, we're animals of story, we're animals of connection. So we want to connect with other people also. So the more, the better that we can do that, just for our own sanity. And then if it has a business benefit, even better.
How do you help entrepreneurs navigate doubt? And you could talk about just, I can't raise capital, I can't sell, all these things that you're going to tell yourself the stories, right? And, sometimes I can pair that with, the solo entrepreneur versus the team entrepreneur, right? Because the solo entrepreneur, many times you're just on an island, right? And in that part, you're facing your battles every day.
So it's helpful, and this could apply to lots of areas, but I think for entrepreneurs, it's helpful to be with doubt, be specific. What are you doubting? Because if you just say, I don't know if this is going to work, why? So we're seeing right now as we're recording this, like there's a lot of macroeconomic, geopolitical uncertainties. Yep, I don't know what tariffs are going to be. So if you import something, don't ask me. And you're uncertain too. So I shift that question and say, well, what can you be certain about? So with doubt, Do you doubt the business? Why can't you do it? You doubt the business model? You're doubting your financial model? Are you doubting that your investors are going to commit? Are you doubting in your own leadership ability as this thing grows? Are you doubting in your own stamina? So the more we can be specific, then we can decide if we can address it or not. And so if it's like, yeah, you know what, maybe it is my own stamina. Let's be even very specific. All right, do you need more stamina? There's ways to get more stamina physically, but like, is it you don't have the stamina because you actually just don't, your heart's not in it anymore? Okay, well, let's talk about that. Because then if we're just like, yep, I don't know if you can do it either, then we're just talking in such generalities, nothing's getting done and it actually gets worse. But if we can at least move to addressing it, and again, sometimes the addressing might be, let's close it up. Let's close it up well. And that's okay too. A lot of what we do here sometimes is helping someone realize not the business for you right now. And so but you made that decision from an educated standpoint. Let's say you got a barbecue sauce, you want to go national. We can walk you through what that's going to take. And you may realize, like, I don't have the time, the capital, the energy to be the next big national barbecue sauce brand. Okay, cool. Now you know that. So you can like get some closure. Like that's the rest. Yeah, you can grow it regionally. You can be the best barbecue sauce at the farmer's market every Saturday. You can be the best barbecue sauce maker at your company and the chili cook-off every year you're winning it. And those things can make you super happy too. So that's where we try to let people just tap into, like, why are you doing this? Because I think like other areas in life, we've got some standard that who knows if it's real or not, but it's real to us. And we're like, I got to be the biggest barbecue sauce guy on this side of the Mississippi. And it's like, why? And so a lot of what we do is also just that personal understanding and goal setting too, of where do you want to take us? Because this is your business.
Yeah, I love that. Honestly, I found that anytime I had doubt or worry, getting it real leads you to an action, right? Because if you just have worries, right, and there's no action from that, then it's just a waste of worry, right? Because there's no result. Like you can't seek a result from something. I'm just worried about the business. Okay, so what does that mean? Worried about what, right? Customers. Okay, so why are you worried about customers? Oh, we're losing customers. Okay, so why are we losing customers? And you can get some kind of reaction to it where you can act. And the action can get a result, right? And the result might not be what you want, but at least you took action and now you can pivot off the result you get. And that's where usually I see every single time it comes down to just the overarching worry, but the worry doesn't have some concrete foundation to it. And then you can't actually do anything from there. So, right. And that's the same thing from entrepreneurship, is that there's just so much busyness right now in the world and everything else, but there's always busy and it's always going to be busy until you slow it down and put into segments about what you need in your business. Then you truly can't get results from it. I'm sure for entrepreneurs, just so many ideas, right? There's ideas happening right now that I'm sure you're seeing in the day-to-day that we haven't even thought of, right? Like the majority of the world hasn't even thought of someone to come up with this idea yet, because it's just on the premise of them just thinking about it, right? And so that part, it's a whole new sector. So in that part, the doubt that it could even work, it's real. But okay, well, so many other businesses, you think of anything like, oh, I'm going to get in random people's cars and drive around and go just in random people's houses. Like all of those ideas were just random, weird ideas until they were real ideas, until they started working. And then it just made sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, action, you said it, man. Action removes uncertainty. It's a number one. You're uncertain or you're doubtful, act, because you'll know. And that's the piece is, I think if you want to dwell in uncertainty, then yeah, I probably can't help you. But if you want to take action, even if it's failure, you're like, oh, thank God. Okay, now I know. Like now I'm certain. And that is what we want. We want to be certain in our relationships. We want to be certain in our businesses, be certain of our institutions and society. The more that we can gain that certainty, the better off we are. But personally, we got to act. We got to get up and do something.
So this might be an opinion question, could be Nashville Entrepreneur Center question. Is there any sectors or fields right now that really bullish on, excited about, or just feel that more people need to set their sights on?
I think there's a couple. I'll answer a little bit personally, but also what we see. We're in Nashville. We're the healthcare capital of the world. So we're seeing a ton of health tech. And I say health because I think what the world is starting to realize, and we've got a lot of entrepreneurs chasing this, is there's a difference between healthcare and health. When we talk about health, we can talk about preventative, we can talk about disciplines, routines, we can talk about nutrition, we can talk about activity, and all that. Now we have so much data on that more than ever. And the question is, what do we do with that? So I think that's exciting because I think we as a people, we want to be healthy. We want to chase health. We like activity. And so we've got all this. So I think there's some awesome opportunities about that I'm seeing in Nashville because we have the biggest healthcare players here who can start to integrate those things. So that's really exciting. People ask me about AI. I don't know if AI is an industry as much as it's a tool that more and more businesses are leveraging. Our entrepreneurs, regardless of what kind of business they're starting or industry, just like I would argue they're all technology businesses. Even if you run a coffee shop, there's more technology in that coffee shop than was, on the first space shuttle. That's probably not true. But anyway, you get the point, how fast things are advancing. Same way I think with AI. Like, why wouldn't you leverage it in some way, even if you're just running a consultancy? My goodness. I wouldn't necessarily go. Now, if you're building a large language model or something that's deeply rooted in that, all right, you can make the case that's an AI company where something else may just leverage it. But if you're not doing it, you got to get on that. Man, back to the health thing. This is just personal. I'm fascinated by the non-alcoholic beverage industry. And I don't mean like energy drinks, but I'm talking about these things that are removing alcohol from stuff. But generationally, people are drinking less. And it's something that to me that's just fascinating. When I ran my gift company, I was just knee deep in all kinds of products. It was awesome to see people who are making like real things. And so that's something that I'm curious about. Just will that industry continue to evolve? Knowing how big our alcohol industry has become in both beer, wine, spirits, all that. That's kind of cool to see. One of our prominent entrepreneurs who won an award last year, she has a retail store. All they sell are these non-alcoholic wines and liquors and beers and thriving. And so anyway, to me, that's just like you see things, you see patterns, and it's interesting. I think some of those are just both personal curiosity, but then also what we're seeing here at the center.
From a health aspect, is it, maybe it's just my focus on it too. Are you seeing a very big push into people focusing more on their health?
They're conscious, because I think people are like, this doesn't feel good or right. I mean, you're seeing it like, and I'm not in this community, but overarching phrase is kind of the biohacking piece, and people can get really detailed on it. All the cold plunge stuff and those disciplines. I mean, new workout gym studios pop up all the time. How Peloton exploded, especially because of the distancing of COVID. The gyms that are thriving, they're offering more than they're offering community. And again, back to that connection we desire as humans is more than that. I mean, according to the CDC and other health organizations, chronic loneliness is now a leading cause of death. And its comorbidity rate is higher than smoking cigarettes or drinking. Everything else would be called an epidemic at that point, but we don't name that with loneliness, at least in the US. Some other countries have. And so that's brought on by a lot. I think there's those pieces of health that are, you can call them secondary, tertiary if you want to, but we are healthier when we get to interact with one another. We are healthier when we're moving our bodies. We are healthier when we're eating the right thing. Some of that is driven by the generational, but some of that is just I guess there's a dissatisfaction of how the way things are, but that's all entrepreneurship is. You're dissatisfied with something in the marketplace. You want to start your own thing.
The one thing that stands out so much for me, and like my kids are 6, 8, and 10, but I just look at it, you spend so much time where you had to connect with people, right? And then you go to these points where you have all these social aggregators where you feel like you're connecting with people, but you're not really connecting with people, right? And so now you spend so much time like being connected, but like not really ever being connected. You're alone, right? But you feel like you're not alone, right? But it leads you into this path where like mentally, physically, emotionally, you're not actually connecting. And I just wonder how the path leads forward to here. That do we have this point where everybody just rejects it and finally goes the other way, or does it get doubled down on? Because if you are a business right now, if you can create a real community, you see, like it could be anything. Like it could be anything from like a lipstick product to something with like a plushie like animal thing, like anything, right? A zoo. If you can create a community, you stand out far more than to anybody who just stands there with just a great product. And
there's a strong business case for that. Absolutely. I mean, yes. And that's what's at the core of what we do at the Entrepreneur Center is that we have, as I mentioned, 275 as of right now, members, because they want each other. They want the mentors, they want the classes, but they want each other because they're like, does this have to be this lonely? It's just me starting this thing. And maybe I've got a co-founder, maybe I grow to have employees, but I want to be around other people. Yeah, we're wired that way. So our species, we form communities for 3 reasons. The first was always for survival, safety. The second was growth. So that's where education comes in. And the third is meaning. We're the only species that asks questions of, is there a higher power? And what does this all mean? And we create communities to make those things true, safety, growth, and meaning. And so that can apply to a business setting too, because people just want it. It's a thing they want, just like if you selling water because people are thirsty. That's as equal a need on a couple levels as that. So the more that you can offer that, absolutely people will flock to it. And if you're on the outside, what? Those people are annoying. People who do CrossFit, they're annoying. All they talk about is CrossFit. Well, yeah, dude, because they're finding meaning there. Nobody just CrossFit by themselves. I've never seen it happen. And so the more that those connections are happening, the more, yes, that I think there can be a business model around it. Yes. But the more that you're just doing it good for society. This is something that I get a privilege to talk about to different groups, because if you can work in that true connection, it works for employers. People don't leave bad jobs. They leave lonely jobs because they look around. They're like, man, no one would care if I didn't work here anymore. And so like, I guess I'll start looking for somewhere else versus, hey man, Jason, my buddy over here, like, I don't know, kind of like seeing every day. But, I'm fine here. And so I think there's opportunities for companies to think about that in the corporate setting, for cities to think about that. Toured a new apartment building here. And it's funny in Nashville because the apartments themselves are getting a little smaller, but the amenities are getting bigger. The gym is huge. There's a co-working level in the apartment. There's, pool decks. There's all this because the idea is like get out of that 500, 800 square foot box and get down here with other people. And so that's something that's slowly flipping generational. And so I hope that within the next generation, we also just think about how we're redesigning even communities and cities. I think we're starting to think about that. Hotels are doing that. You go to some hotels, some brands, the lobby's the coolest part. You can hang out. There's record players, there's games. Because the idea is like, even if you're on a work trip, get out of your room. It's small. What's up there? Come down here and meet other people.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Sam, I've really enjoyed the conversation. This opens up a ton of ideas always for me, and I'm sure listeners have gotten a ton. I have two last questions for you. The first one is that for someone right now who's trying to think of their next idea, what would be three things that would be some idea poppers, something to spark their mind right now that you would suggest?
So do you want something that might result in an idea or what to do with an idea?
Let's result in an idea. Let's think of that point. They're trying to get out of their own head to get some ideas going that they're really passionate about.
Okay. Yeah. So a couple of things that can say, hey, how could I maybe end up at an idea? So the one is, and I love this, one of our entrepreneurs in residence, he talks about just sort of taking time to say, what does the world need? Because you might think like, oh, I got to go start an AI business. That's what everybody's talking about. Okay, but that doesn't answer the world. Because if you answer the question, what does the world need? You're going to end up with something that you're going to probably get excited about, probably because you are the world. You need that thing. And so you're like, man, I wish there was a bar that blank. I wish there was a service that blank. So I think that's number one, is if you think, not because the world is going to be your customer, but then you're defining something that you're willing to chase. I think that's number one. I think number two, who could I have asked that same question to? You're better if you don't ask that question. What does the world need alone? It doesn't mean that the person you're talking with or the buddies you're going to gather to ask that question, all of y'all are going to be co-founders and joint venture. They may not want to do that, but they're at least willing to talk about it. Oh yeah, man, the other day I was wondering, hey, what if blank? And again, that goes back to that community piece. And the third thing that I always encourage people is who else could be involved in that? Because again, I think the more that you ask who's missing or where could I go for this? I mean, exploration. I'm a big reader. I love to travel, mainly just because, hey, here's a new idea. Inspiration and opportunity. Inspiration strikes and opportunity knocks. And both of those things happen when you least expect it. And so if you can at least put yourself in situations where inspiration can strike and opportunity can knock, you'll probably end up with an idea that's worth chasing down.
That's huge. Well, Sam, thanks so much. How should people learn more about you, learn more about the Center, EC? What would be the best way?
You bet, man. So yeah, you can follow the National Entrepreneur Center, ec.co. That's our website. You get to, we're very active on LinkedIn. So that's where we post stuff. And on the website, you can see ways to get involved, sign up for our newsletter. And then I'm kind of biggest from a professional standpoint on LinkedIn. Type in Sam Davidson. I'm usually the first guy that comes up there. So yeah, feel free to check me out there when I'm posting and sharing there as well. Help folks navigate the entrepreneurial journey.
Perfect. Sam, thanks so much for being on the show.
You bet, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Everyone, thank you so much for listening. This is the Live 100 podcast. Jason Yarusi.